Tensions are high, Jim, here on the Broncos sideline. Bad words for them and Dalton Risner defending Russell Wilson, trying to calm everyone down, going up and down the sidelines. But
in some form of poetic justice, just 4 days, 3 days, 5 days, the time difference is completely screwing me up here, guys. After our last Denver Broncos video, the very thing we suggested to fix the Denver Broncos and how they essentially didn't have any choice but to do this ended up happening. So we have a lot to discuss because this means several things for the Denver Broncos. There's a lot of ways that they could go, and there's a rumor even out there that Denver Broncos fans could be excited about. At the end of the day, I know this sounds crazy, but not this year especially, but this could save the Denver Broncos. So before we get to the content, we're coming to you live from Istanbul, Turkey. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to support the grind and the wild, bizarre work ethic because it's so late here right now, and I'm jet lagged out of my mind, man. Now that we get all that out of the way, break! This video is sponsored by PrizePicks. You guys know PrizePicks has been my latest obsession because I live in California. There's no way that you could gamble on games in California, so the best way you could get action on games is through PrizePicks. And ever since I partnered with them, we've been having a lot of fun. And before we get to the latest promo, I want to give a huge shout out to my man, Nasri Hasbun, who tweeted me a six-legged pick that he hit on as a result of our last promo, which means he 25x'd his money. And that's freaking awesome. Hopefully more of my subs hit this big as a result of today's promo. As a matter of fact, it's not only today's promo, because from this day and on until Christmas Day, PrizePicks is releasing a brand new promo every day, and it's called Picksmas. All you have to do is download PrizePicks, use my promo code Mikerophone to get up to a $100 deposit match, and then just log into PrizePicks each and every day to see what they're offering for that day. Since they're offering a brand new promo each and every day, I'm probably going to be posting my picks onto my Instagram story. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see I literally play PrizePicks each and every day. So huge shout out to PrizePicks for the sponsorship. Make sure you sign up with my promo code Mikerophone or the link in the description down below. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? First of all, my apologies for the horrific lighting. I should have brought some travel lighting with me, and I'll make a mental note for that the next time I decide to work on the road. But this past weekend, we had a very rare opportunity where all of the football games that we would typically watch on Sunday was on Christmas Eve. It was a really huge treat. I mean, it was probably the only day that you could ever eat Chick-fil-A while watching NFL Red Zone. And one of the least hyped up games of the day was a game that we all expected nobody to really watch. The Los Angeles Rams, led by Baker Mayfield, who essentially had nothing to play for at this point, were facing off against the Denver Broncos, who have been the NFL's biggest dumpster fire up until this point. And somehow, some way, right when you thought there was no way, shape, or form for that game to have any relevance at all whatsoever, oh, believe me, we had a lot to talk about following that game. Starting from this bizarre incident with Brett Ripien, the backup quarterback of the Denver Broncos, shoving and getting into it with the Denver Broncos offensive line. Now, normally I would just say this is a part of the sport of football, but I feel like each and every week up until this point, we've been seeing tantrum after tantrum after tantrum being thrown on the Denver Broncos sideline, and it's getting kind of embarrassing. You've seen moments where Russell Wilson has to defend the situation that he's in. I mean, do you remember when multiple teammates of his were on the trade block and he was making it seem like it was as a result of them being very desirable and not necessarily a symptom of how horrific they've been together?
I heard that there's some stuff about, Chubb and Judy and these guys. I told him that, listen, the greater you are, the more people are going to want you. But yeah, I mentioned to him one-on-one, that don't take offense to it.
Now, I want you to compare that tone of Russell Wilson still having a glimmer of hope in his season to this tone right when he got his handed to him by the Los Angeles Rams, who again were led by Baker Mayfield and had nothing to play for on Christmas Eve. Bear in mind, the final score was 51-14. And honestly, if you look at this interview from Russell Wilson, it seems like my man's straight up out of cliches to use.
The bottom line is that I let us down. It's been disappointing. We've had some really good moments this year. We've had some really bad moments. We've had some in between. Create consistency, and that's the biggest thing that we're missing right now is that consistency. I think we're all frustrated. I think we're all frustrated because we feel like we can be better. We feel like we're capable of being better.
But that wasn't even the most bizarre part of the game. I mean, I'm just telling you funny little footnotes. This wasn't the main issue of the game. You saw moments where Russell Wilson was literally talking to a football while he was trying to communicate with his teammates. And then if a sideline tantrum wasn't enough for you to raise an eyebrow after seeing multiple tantrums throughout the year, including the famous KJ Hamler tantrum when Russell Wilson missed him on a wide open read to win a game earlier this year versus the Indianapolis Colts, or Melvin Gordon giving him a dirty look which would result in being a viral meme. What about this play from Courtland Sutton, who was supposed to have a remarkable year as a result of Russell Wilson coming to the Denver Broncos? By the way, if you remember, he was supposed to be one of those fantasy football breakout stars. I would know because I made the mistake of drafting him. Well, take a look at this. Look at Courtland Sutton being so frustrated at Russell Wilson from Russell Wilson missing him despite him being wide open and literally jumping up and down in a KJ Hamler-esque fashion as a result of how frustrated he is. This is something we've seen week after week after week. It doesn't seem like there's been any progress for this team at all whatsoever. It just keeps getting worse. And to be honest, you could point the blame finger at Russell Wilson, which I partially do because this man is straight up just missing reads. But if you're having your teammates argue on the sidelines in addition to your star QB, which you gave up a significant amount of draft capital for, which includes not only a top 10 pick from last year, a tight end that seems very promising, but what appears to be a top 3 pick this year, then obviously your team is in some trouble. And at the end of the day, if you ask me, on paper, a team that has Russell Wilson, Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, yes, Tim Patrick and Javonte Williams had injuries that crippled this team, but also you remember the fact that the Denver Broncos are one of the best defenses in the NFL. They should not be a bottom 3 team at all whatsoever. They should not be getting memed or having their games commentated by Patrick Starr. No, literally, this is a thing. Look.
That's not what he wanted to cook.
And it appears as though Denver Broncos ownership would agree with you, because following the incredibly embarrassing loss to the Los Angeles Rams, who I repeat have absolutely nothing to play for at this point, including there's no point in them tanking for a bottom pick or for them to play really hard to make it to the playoffs, because this team's injured as hell and it just seems like there's no way, shape, or form mathematically for them to make it into the playoffs. The Denver Broncos decided that they've seen enough with Nathaniel Hackett, and it seems like the head coaching carousel once again is going to spin for the Denver Broncos, because according to Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissaro, the Denver Broncos have officially decided to fire Nathaniel Hackett with 2 games remaining in the NFL season. Now, before I get to the statement from the Denver Broncos, I want you to understand the significance of this. I mean, this is like near Urban Meyer levels of ineptitude for a head coach. It's Nathaniel Hackett's first season, and things were so bad that the Broncos decided that, hey, we don't want to see anything more at this point, and decided to pull the plug on it. Well, the Denver Broncos actually issued a statement in regards to the whole situation, saying, on behalf of our ownership and organization, I want to thank Nathaniel Hackett for his dedication as head coach of the Denver Broncos. We sincerely appreciate Nathaniel's efforts and wish him and his family all the best in the future. Following extensive conversation with George and our ownership group, we determined a new direction would ultimately be in the best interest of the Denver Broncos. This change was made now out of respect for everyone involved and allows us to immediately begin the search for a new head coach. We recognize and appreciate this organization's championship history, and we understand that we have not met that standard. Our fans deserve much better, and I can't say enough about their loyalty during such a challenging stretch for our team. Moving forward, we will carefully evaluate every aspect of our football operation operations and make whatever changes are necessary to restore this franchise's winning tradition. I will lead our head coaching search with support from our ownership group and George, whom I have confidence in as our general manager. As we begin the process of selecting our next head coach, we remain focused on playing competitive football to finish the season on a positive note. I mean, it's really concerning. The Denver Broncos have missed the playoffs in 7 consecutive seasons since winning the Super Bowl in 2015, which I guess kind of makes sense considering the fact that following the Super Bowl, the head coach that won the Super Bowl with them and the Hall of Fame QB that was responsible for them winning that Super Bowl are no longer with the team. But there are core pieces of the Denver Broncos identity that have remained intact. This team's identity is still the fact that they have a suffocating defense. And remember, this team was so complete that they decided that if they were to trade for Russell Wilson, they would have everything they need to win a Super Bowl. Originally, I was under the impression that the main reason that Nathaniel Hackett was brought in was just to lure Aaron Rodgers over. I wasn't necessarily thinking that Nathaniel Hackett was the Denver Broncos' top priority as a head coach because Nathaniel Hackett is good at coaching at all whatsoever. It's no disrespect to Nathaniel Hackett, it just seems like he was a guy that built a strong relationship with Aaron Rodgers that would be able to lure Aaron Rodgers over from Green Bay. Once that failed and they reverted to plan B with Russell Wilson, it seemed like Russell Wilson wasn't talented enough to carry Nathaniel Hackett as an insufficient head coach the way Aaron Rodgers would have been able to. Now, I know that could be a little harsh towards Nathaniel Hackett, but you have to bear in mind, this guy was fired as a coordinator before when he was working for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's a situation where he was in the right place at the right time and bonded with a Hall of Fame QB who had the opportunity to potentially get traded to the Denver Broncos that got him into this situation to begin with. So at this point, you might be wondering what's next for the Denver Broncos. Well, we discussed this in our previous video, and it seems like the plan is following suit. There's nothing else that the Broncos could have done but this. Bear in mind, the Broncos decided to trade Drew Lock, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, a 2022 first-round pick that became the number 9 overall pick, and a 2023 first-round pick that's looking like a top 5 pick right now, 2 second-round picks, a 5th-round pick, and a 5th-round pick for Russell Wilson, and a 4th-round pick. And at the time, I did applaud the Denver Broncos for doing this because I didn't think Russell Wilson was going to perform this horribly, but after that, they extended him, and he is the second highest paid player in the NFL right now. You can't cut ties with him. You can't release him. You could play this game where you try to point the blame finger at either Hackett or Russell Wilson, and to be honest, I think it's a bit of both, but at the end of the day, you are contractually obligated and stuck to Russell Wilson until he's age 40, which is really scary when you think about it because this is year 1 of what could potentially be a 5-year situation with Russell Wilson, who is getting paid an obscene amount of money to perform this horribly. So the only choice you have at this point really is just to replace his head coach. Now, who could be the head coach that you replace him with? Well, a few days ago, we got a report that Sean Payton is interested in returning to the NFL as a head coach and has already put together an all-star coaching staff that includes former Broncos head coach Vic Fangio as his potential defensive coordinator. Now, immediately, I do think this is an adorable story. Of course, I think Sean Payton would be an A+ home run type of head coach for this situation. I feel like it's a situation where you would probably get the most stable head coach that would ensure that you'd be in a situation to win Super Bowls consistently, or at least be in contention for Super Bowls, or at the very minimum, have your team play up to their expectations. But if we're being honest here, with respect to the Denver Broncos, there's no way you're going to get Vic Fangio to come back and be your defensive coordinator after you fired him as your head coach. That would just be really weird. Could you just imagine how the defense would feel about that? How the entire Denver Broncos team would feel about that? I mean, 70% of the players that are Denver Broncos now were Denver Broncos a year ago when Vic Fangio was the head coach. And Ian Rappaport even confirmed this on the Pat McAfee show.
Vic Fangio's not come back there as defensive coordinator, right? So, because he was head coach there. Unless Payton's going to go with a different DC, which is possible. I don't think that Payton's going there.
Could Sean Payton? Could Sean Payton go there?
He could, but I
Okay.
think he's going to want to bring his own
Tired.
personnel guy, or at least have significant personnel say.
So you can immediately rule that out. I am going to consistently back this man as a head coach because one of the few things I agree with Nick Sirianni on is that this man should not have been fired to begin with. I think Frank Reich will be the perfect man for the job. You don't necessarily need a defensive head coach in this instance. I think you could just get yourself a head coach that clearly knows what he's doing on offense and just depend on the defense to keep doing what they've been doing. They were solid despite a year of having a really bad head coach. And I think that could solve the Denver Broncos problems perfectly. I know Dan Quinn is going to rocket to the top of a lot of people's wish lists at this point, but I don't necessarily think you need to get a defensive head coach for a team that is struggling offensively the way the Denver Broncos are. But I'd like to hear what you have to say. If you're a Broncos fan, are you feeling a little bit more optimistic now that Nathaniel Hackett's gone? Or are you thinking this is more of the same and the wheels are turning on the coaching carousel once again and you're beginning to give up hope after going from Gary Kubiak to Vance Joseph to Vic Fangio to Nathaniel Hackett to whoever the hell the next guy might be? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.